Things are quiet now. The day has been long. People have drifted away, both sure and yet unsure of what they have just witnessed. Silence hovers over this place now like a gray fog. The sky is dark. The air is heavy and warm. Blood soaks the ground at the feet of the 3 crosses where the state executions have now been carried out. As darkness falls, there is only silence. It has been a dizzying chain of events. We can still hear the echoes of the songs of Hosanna as Jesus was entering the holy city. But that was on Sunday, and this is Friday. Sunday's welcoming throng has turned into Friday's bloodthirsty mob. Voices that sang out Hosanna are now shouting, "Crucify him." Just last night, Jesus was with his disciples breaking bread, washing feet, talking about betrayal and love, only to be dragged away in the middle of the night, tried before a lynch mob, and then sentenced to die. For what? Because he dared to love in ways that no one had seen before, even to the point of praying that his executioners be forgiven. Jesus showed us what love looks like on its knees washing the disciples' feet. And now he shows us what love looks like hanging on a cross. What were people so afraid of in Jesus? What was so intimidating about the message of peace that it had to be killed? People walk by, but some look away. Is the physical suffering too much for the eyes to see? Or is it too much for the soul to bear, that we respond to such profound love with such extreme violence? Good Friday forces us to take a good look at the violence of our world, the blood on the cross, the blood on our streets, and the blood on our fields of war. It forces us to face the depravity of the suffering human condition and to deal with the reality that it was human hands that nailed God to that wooden instrument of torture. It gives us a startling look at God suffering and brokenhearted. It's disturbing, and it should be, because the players in this passion narrative are composites of our own humanity. We are all part of crucifixion in our little or not so little ways. The main characters in the story of the crucifixion are not bad or evil as much as they are simply human. They didn't necessarily possess the darkness of evil as much as they simply had a propensity to be so human. Pilate simply was a coward. He was afraid that what the religious leaders might say to the emperor if he didn't carry out their demands. So every time we don't stand up for what we know is right, every time we fail to stand against what we know is wrong, we are a part of what crucifies a God who stands for justice and truth. And the religious leaders surely didn't see themselves as bad or evil. Caiaphas was an admired and revered religious leader of the most religious people of their time. He was a high priest. He was devout and surely thought of himself as a sincerely religious man. He wanted Jesus condemned simply because he was too rigid. He wasn't open to any suggestion that the reality of God could be experienced through any understanding other than his own. For Caiaphas, Jesus upset everything with his teachings of pure love of God and of one another as the primary means to salvation. And to make matters worse, thousands of people were following him. Caiaphas wanted to protect the religious structure, the religious institution from this man. Caiaphas's human flaw was that he thought his truth was the only truth. Every time we claim God as only for us and not for all, every time we judge the spiritual experience of another as invalid or lacking, regardless of their religious views, we crucify God, who says that we're all equally beloved. And then those who gather to witness this spectacle of torture tonight and suffering, who mocked and ridiculed Jesus, did so for the sheer sport of it. Anytime we ridicule or diminish or shame another for any reason so that we can feel superior or clever or popular in the moment to those around us, we are mocking and shaming God, who says that we are all created in the Imago Dei, his image, God's image. Ultimately, how we treat others is how we treat God. If it is Christ who suffers in the lives of those around us, and surely it is, then we must put aside anything that leads to death instead of life. Because every time we crucify Jesus and others, little by little, we die, and God weeps. But there's another important element in all of this: those who love Jesus and were devoted to the very end. Yes, we are Judas in our betrayal, but we are also Mary in our devotion and love for Jesus. We are all Peter in our denials and shame, but we are also the beloved disciple in our quiet, constant love for Jesus. We are the religious leaders in our self-righteousness, but we are also the sinful woman who bathes Jesus' feet with her tears and dries them with her hair in humility. We all have the capacity for love, because that is how we were created. The passion that is before us this night is surely that of betrayal and violence, the suffering and the heartbreak that is the world of humanity. But it is also the compassion, the forgiveness, and the love of God poured out for each and every one of us. Because through it all, we remain the absolute apple of God's eye, the desire of God's heart, and the aim of God's love. The cross stands in the center of Christianity, and it stands as the intersection of human suffering condition and God's amazing grace. So on this night, we are shrouded in the stark reality of death, and we have the untidy realization that we are all a part of it. But we are also reminded of love, because this night is not ultimately just about the fact that Jesus died. It's also about the fact that God so loved the world that God gave Jesus to us. So tonight we are held by our God, who offers us through his Son The promise that life lies beyond our own fickle nature, beyond our executioner's guilt, that beyond our finite selves there is love that is infinite. It is the same love that was on its knees last night, washing our feet, reminding us that just as we did it for our friends here, we were doing it for Jesus. That same love is here tonight. It just looks different when it looks down from the cross. A kind man tenderly, oh so lovingly, takes the body down, wraps it with spices and linen cloth, and places it in the tomb. We have a hand in this too, because we too love our Lord. We join with the women in their stunned silence because, like them, we love our Lord. We know it, He knows it, and God knows it. That's why we keep vigil with and for Jesus tonight, the heart of all compassion, albeit with a sword piercing our soul. The sadness, the tears, the need for our own forgiveness, and the expectation that He will make all things new. Yes, this is indeed Good Friday.